Well, hello there, life group leaders. In 2011, we're off to a new year, and one of the things that typically means is we're heading into a new sermon series. We this past year studied the book of Mark for the better part of the year, and then had a Christmas sermon series, and we're starting something new here in the next couple of weeks. So, as we always like to do, we thought we'd give Dan an opportunity to just share where we're headed, so you can know in case that shapes what you and your life group do over these next several weeks and months. So, Dan, where are we headed?
Well, hopefully going up in some way in all of our sites, whether it's on the walls at 1250 or under the screens in the other places, will be our theme verse. Our theme verse for 2011 comes from John 14:12, where Jesus says to his disciples, "If you believe in me, then you'll be doing even greater works than I've done, and whatever you ask in my name, I'll do it." And so it has this sense in the verse of there is a greater than. There's a greater than vision, a greater than calling, greater than works for us to do, works even greater than what Jesus did. And so that's really what we're going to unwrap, I guess, during the course of the first half of 2011. The series will be called Greater Than, and the tagline is Seeking a New Normal. And part of the idea of the tagline is that sometimes, maybe too often, we tend to think of the Christian life as this kind of radical thing. God has called us to radical living, when the reality is what Jesus called his disciples to was just the new normal. And we tend to think of these calls to generosity or sacrifice or discipleship or loving God with all our heart, souls, and mind as being this radical thing when really it's supposed to be normal for us. And so what is the new normal? What are the expectations that Jesus has for his disciples? And so the series is going to start January 22nd and 23rd, and it will go through the last weekend that the students are here. So that's all the way into May, the end of April, beginning of May. The first few talks, the first few teachings will take that verse, John 14:12, and unpack it a little bit, talk about some of the essentials to greater than living, which is faith. It talks a lot about faith in those verses. Prayer is important, humility is important. And then the last half of the series will talk a bit more about what are these greater works. What does it look like for us to do these greater things? What does total abandon and generosity and evangelism and all of that look like in the context of this new normal picture that Jesus paints for us?
Well, one of the questions that life group leaders are often curious about is there a way as a life group to track along with the sermon series, to study along with? This series is not going to be based on a book
Right.
of the Bible or another book specifically,
Right.
but are there any resources that you would encourage life group leaders to grab hold of if they wanted to follow some similar themes?
Yeah. The texts for the series are going to come from all over the place in the Bible. Most of them New Testament, but a mix of Paul's letters and John's letters and the Gospels and all that kind of stuff. The book that we're doing in our life group, I haven't read it yet, but I've had so many people who have said that this is a great book to read, and a lot of buzz about it in Christendom and different churches, is a book called Radical by David Platt. And I guess maybe even in some ways the tagline for the sermon series plays off of that a little bit. Radical is the new normal that Jesus is looking for. The sermon series won't directly follow each chapter, but I have looked at the chapter headings and tried to get a feel for some of what David Platt is talking about. And there'll be at least a little bit of a similar flow. But even if you're not hitting similar topics on the similar weekends that I'm preaching on, I think this book will be a good discussion starter, a good added information, conviction, inspiration kind of book to go along with it. So that's what we're doing in our life group. We're going to take the book Radical and work our way through it chapter by chapter. There's even, if you go online, and I guess we could probably get some of that information to you, there's some study guide notes that they have from David Platt's church to help with the book if people wanted to do that. But so that would be a book that I would suggest is the book Radical. For those of you who maybe have already done that, another book that would carry some of the same themes is a book by Richard Stearns called The Hole in Our Gospel. It's just not quite as broad and all-encompassing as the series will be, but it hits some of those themes in terms of generosity and caring for, having compassion for the world. It hits some of those same themes. So.
And those books, obviously, at this day and age, you can buy those online. We will probably have a couple copies of each of those books available at the bookstore tables at 1250 and over in Midtown. So if you even just want to flip through it or you want to buy a copy there, you're welcome to do that. And if you have any questions about that, obviously feel free to let me know. I'm always happy to help people get the resources that they need. One other thing I'll just mention, as we like to remind folks, a great way for you to track along with the sermons in your life group is just to talk about the sermons in your life group, something that our life group's been doing for the last number of months. And we have a sermon discussion guide. I'll show the link. I'll put it right about here, so you can see how to access that, or you can just sit down and talk if your group's at a place where you're that comfortable. And that's a great way to just allow what we do on the weekends to resonate and connect with what we do when we get together in the middle of the week. So feel free to utilize that as well. As always, if you have questions, let us know. lifegroups@calvarysc.org. Steve or I will get back to you as quickly as we can to answer whatever's on your mind. And thanks again as we jump into this new year for investing in people through your life group. It's really in so many ways the heart of what's going on here at Calvary. And so we're grateful for your investment that way.